All right, so this is a. I wasn't even planning on recording, not even recording this type of video, but also just not planning on recording today. But just this stuff that I saw earlier today while I was at work, and just of how interesting it was that I was reading about it and thinking more about it. I was like, I probably wanted to do a video and voice my own opinions about it. Now, if you guys don't know what I am talking about, of course, recently, earlier today, here on Monday as I'm recording, it's probably going to be Tuesday, if y'all watching this, which is usually how I do my videos. It's usually how I've done my videos. At work earlier, I of course saw a video on YouTube, and then I saw this on Instagram as well, mostly talking about some a new report or something like that that came out I think earlier today about the draft situation for the Saints. Apparently, the Saints going ahead to expected to go ahead and address the wide receiver slash tight end positions in the draft. Now, apparently, this was from an article by Tony Pauline, I think is how you say his last name. I don't know. But mostly, this all is just focusing on one certain part. I couldn't really find the article, but thanks to Who Dat Nation on Instagram, this is on her Instagram post. He does have the quote on the Instagram. He's a really cool Instagram. Definitely go follow over there. He's pretty cool. Saints Instagram and all that. Who Dat Nation. Also, the Saints Now YouTube channel was the video that I saw. But mostly looking at this and looking at just this one specific quote. I'm gonna go ahead and read it. I know this is kind of weird of how I usually come into and start my videos. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Start my videos and all that. But firstly says, quote, it could be a situation where the team takes Keon Shadiq, I'm hoping I'm saying this guy's name, with its first round pick, then draft a pass rusher in the second round and finishes out day two with a wide receiver such as Elijah Stratton. Now, to mostly, because I know I just went right into that, let me, of course, kind of back it up a little bit, kind of give more context of this. So, the tight end that they are talking about, Shadiq, I think is how you say his last name. He's from Oregon tight end. He is one of the top tight end. I looked more in about him and all that. He is one of the top tight end prospects coming into this draft. And mostly what this is saying, and apparently in this article I think it talks a little more about it, is that the Saints are apparently like expected to address wide receiver and tight end early in the draft, or at some point in this draft, first with the tight end in the first round. Of course, we have the 8th overall pick. So mostly this is saying that the Saints could be expected to pick a tight end in the top 10 with the 8th overall pick, which is pretty interesting. You know, it's pretty interesting, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to make this video. I looked around some more stuff, and it's just very, very interesting, and of course, I'm going to talk more about it. But before, I know, of course, it's been a while since last time I recorded. Of course, kind of got caught up with work and other stuff, and of course, Easter was this past weekend, and Good Friday and all that. Hope you guys had an amazing Easter weekend and all that, and I did especially as well. Of course, took a break from videos and all that, so to of course be with family and all that. Again, hope you guys had an amazing Easter and an amazing Good Friday and all that. And of course, real quick before we get more into the video, or get back into the video I should say, make sure you guys don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell for future upcoming videos here on the BrewCrew channel. Of course, I do football content like this, and I do wrestling content as well. Now, of course, sort of a weird intro to this video than my other usual videos, because I literally just went right into what I am talking about. But to kind of step back further a little bit more with this is just very interesting, because yes, tight end is definitely sort of a key position for this team, because of course before the free agency stuff, we only had just Juwan Johnson, Foster Moreau, and of course we still don't know much with Taysom Hill, but Foster Moreau I think we lost in free agency. But especially in free agency, we got Noah Fant, And then, of course, you have Juwan Johnson coming off a career year. So, right then and there, you kind of have a pretty okay tight end room. And I'm not saying that we should not get a tight end. You probably would like to maybe save that for like later. Maybe that could be your day 2 pick and not a wide receiver. Because honestly, a wide receiver is a much more bigger need than a tight end that we should pick in the first round. But first, before I kind of move into that, let's kind of talk more about about Sadiq. Now he does have an interesting journey in college football. I think he was mostly has been with the Ducks. He was coming off his junior year, declared for the NFL draft after his junior year. Now his first 2 years with Oregon, he was mostly a reserve tight end. Only racked up 3 total touchdowns in the combined years of 23 and 24. But coming into 2025 was a breakout year for him and became one of the top tight ends, especially looking at his pro day or combine and all that stuff. He is one of the top tight ends coming into this draft and is projected to be a first round pick potentially. But in 2025, he was a second team AP All-American. He was apparently the Big Ten Conference tight end of the year and was also was a first team All Big Ten All-American and was a finalist for the John Mackey Award, which goes to the nation's top tight end. He led all tight ends with 8 receiving touchdowns in the FBS and set a Oregon school record for the most receptions by a tight end with 51 receptions. He also added on 560 yards and started all 14 games and was a key part of Oregon's big year that they had last year making the playoffs. So those stats right there definitely are interesting enough. Of course, he has made the decision to forego his senior year, come to the NFL draft. He's been projected to be a first round pick, I believe, of some sort. But this is definitely pretty crazy of him coming in as a potential top 10 pick. As a potential top 10 pick, and which is pretty crazy. Now, I don't know where he is on most mock drafts. I should have looked this up. I was about to spell where wrong. Where does he... I don't... Draft. Now, he's actually projected to be... So he is projected... It looks like he is projected to be a top 10 pick. Now, mostly this is showing the teams that he's projected to go in a lot of mock drafts, or just projected to be, Kansas City, Baltimore, Tampa, and San Francisco. All these teams are in the first round. Of course, the only one that's in the top 10 is Kansas City, who is a pick behind us with the number 9 pick. So it is a situation where you could take the risk and take him with your 8th overall pick, or take an even much bigger risk, because apparently a team that's interested in him is Kansas City. But even though Kansas City did, I believe, re-sign Travis Kelce, Kansas City would like to add a new tight end to be more of a successor. So you would be rather taking the risk of trading back and seeing if you could get him just later on in the first round. Because all the other picks, Baltimore at pick number 14, Tampa Bay at 15, and then San Francisco at 27. So he is still projected to be a first round pick, but it is a risk, and potentially is a risk, especially for us, to pick him at the number 10 position. Now, the reason why it is a big risk, because I said this before, tight end is not really the top position we need to get in the first round. To me personally, and probably to a lot of fans, the 3 biggest positions this team is needing is an edge rusher on the defensive line, defensive back, and wide receiver. Linebacker, yes, but the top 3 are the 3 that I just said before. Edge rusher, of course, you got Ruben Bain. That's a pick that you could do. He's the number 1. There, of course, is also David Bailey from Texas Tech, who, of course, is someone that's being talked about a lot. Wide receiver, the 3 that's always been talked about for the Saints, Carnell Tate, McKee Lemon, and Jordan Tyson. Carnell Tate is the number 1 on there if you get wide receiver. Defensive back, which is probably the highest, of course, the big one is Caleb Downs. The other one that has kind of been on the list for a lot of fans and probably also for the team as well is Mansour Delane. LSU Mansour Delane, who I believe is like the number one cornerback in this draft and has been like being boosted up on so many mock drafts of being close to a top 10 pick. So honestly, that's your top three right there. Tight end is nowhere in there. Now, if you do go tight end and you do take the risk, which I don't know how I'm going to feel if they do, what does that mean for receiver? Because of course the thing does say at the end, it says then draft a pass rusher in the second round, because that's the other thing it says is a pass rusher in the second round, which I don't know who that would be. Maybe David Bailey. If you don't want to take a first round risk on him, you could probably do David Bailey in the second round. You could do an edge rusher in the second round no matter what. Like, that would probably be pretty good to do if you do a wide receiver or defensive back, which in my opinion are your probably top two needs to do in the first round. Because you get a wide receiver to help out Chris Olave, and then of course defensive back, whether it is Caleb Downs at the safety position or Mansour Delane a quarterback, it helps your defensive back room no matter what, and gives you more young players on your defense, especially at the cornerback and safety positions. But it does say you go date and finishes out day 2 with a wide receiver such as Elijah Surratt. I think is how you say his last name. Now, Elijah Surratt from the Indiana Hoosiers is one of the wide receivers that could be looked at by the Saints if the Saints want to wait to get a wide receiver. Now, I don't want to say this like, oh, we're like, if whatever we get in the first round, we don't like we still have to like get our position needs. But the first round, in my opinion, should be the biggest need that you need for your team, which in my opinion is either receiver or cornerback or defensive back or something on the defensive side on defensive back side, and then that second round can be your edge. And then but if you do first round for pass rusher, you gotta be able to have something for that second round, because the 3 top wide receivers who could be first rounders on your list are going to be first rounders. But there is this wide receiver, Elijah Stratton. I don't know. I'm just gonna call him Elijah. Elijah, he was a part of Indiana. He was a big part of their national championship win. He had a really great season. He of course played 2 seasons with Indiana. Before Indiana, he was with St. Francis, Pennsylvania, as a freshman, an FCS team. Played really great with them. Played really great with them. He had 13 receiving touchdowns as a freshman. Then he went to James Madison in 2023. Was an all Sun Belt team. He led the team with 82 receptions. He had over 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. He had a great first year with Indiana. He led the team with 53 receptions, 957 yards, and 8 touchdowns again, and started all 13 games. He did miss 2 games this past season with an injury, but when he was back healthy, he was one of the best players on the team. He was second team all Big Ten, and he led the FBS with 15 receiving touchdowns, along with also, I believe, over 830-something yards, and I believe 65 receptions, I believe it was. But the 15 touchdowns were pretty impressive. So really the numbers altogether are really, really impressive, and definitely he could be a big-time playmaking receiver if added to this team, if he is drafted later on in the draft. He could be a pretty big late round pick if we decide to wait on receiver. So all in all, really, I know this has kind of been confusing a little bit because I've kind of been all over the place with this video. All in all, really, it's a risk to, at this point, in my opinion, potentially could be a big risk to take a tight end in the top 10. Because the last time we've seen a tight end be picked in the top 10, or I believe top 5, was Kyle Pitts, back in 22, I believe. And he's been having up and down throughout his career. There, of course, I believe before him, in my opinion, that I can think of was Eric Ebron. If you remember him, he had that 1 year wonder, I believe, in 2018 with the Colts. And then, of course, probably the most successful top 10, top 5 tight end in the NFL history 20 years ago from the 2006 NFL draft was Vernon Davis, who, of course, is one of the top tight ends in the NFL history, and I believe is a future Hall of Famer, or is a Hall of Famer. I can't really fully remember. But there has been sort of successful top 10 tight ends. But it's just with us. And now I'm not saying that if we do draft him, he's going to be a full-on bust. He's not going to be, the level of Vernon Davis or something like that. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, do we want to take the risk of getting him with that 8th overall pick? Because, and Trizzy, who is on the Saints Now YouTube channel, did say this: if you do want to get him, don't risk taking him in the top 10, trade back, and try to see with that. But right now, what I'm nervous about is that I'm seeing that Kansas City is also potentially projected to be a team to get him. And so I don't know how that's going to go. Because, of course, we know that us and Kansas City were top 2 teams for Jeremiah Love. And Jeremiah Love could be still early in the top 10 for other teams. But we don't technically need Jeremiah Love for running back because we just got Travis Etienne. It's just a crazy scenario, It's a crazy scenario with all this, right now. But just finally, again, in my opinion, and I don't think I'll be mad about it, I will definitely be worried, though. I would be worried. Because, honestly, if we do this with our 8th overall pick, we better hit on every other pick after this, because I don't know how this draft class is going to look if we use this as our first round pick and all the other picks don't look as good. I mean, it probably could still be a worry if the first pick is not a great looking pick, but every other pick is a perfect great pick, which of course is very rare, especially later on in the drafts, but that is the worry. But again, don't take a risk on a tight end. Just wait until the next round or day 2 to get a tight end. Just focus on what you actually need. Tight end you do need, but it's not an important need, especially right now when you have Noah Fant that you got from free agency, and you have Juwan Johnson, who, again, I said before, is coming off a career year. You don't need to get a first-round tight end, in my opinion. I don't think we need to get a first-round tight end. The 2 positions that I believe, at least 2 or 3 positions, but my top 2 positions are either wide receiver or defensive back. Because in my opinion, I think Ruben Bain could be a much higher pick than before us. If we go Ruben Bain, if he is available, I would not be sad with it. I wouldn't be sad or wouldn't be mad. But my top 2 players, in my opinion, or top 3 players I could see us probably getting, is either Carnell Tate, if these players are available, Carnell Tate, Caleb Downs, and potentially Mansour Delane. Now, Mansour is probably the dark horse out of those 3, but I'm just mostly saying it because I'm also an LSU fan, and I would love to see him also play for the Saints. But anyway, those are your 3. Those are your 3, in my opinion. Those are your 3 in my opinion. And I do want to say, because we don't have to draft Jeremiah Love, doesn't mean we don't have to draft a running back. A top running back that I've been seeing a lot, Mike Washington from Arkansas. And I've seen this guy play, especially like against LSU and SEC and all that. He is a really good running back. And if you do wait to get him maybe like 3rd or even 4th round, that could be a pretty good pick and would help your running back room if you want to pick him. But, I mean, who knows? If Jeremiah Love is there for the taking and you want to take a risk on that, I don't know. It's just, I feel like the riskier decision is taking the tight end. I already forgot his name for some freaking reason now. You take this tight end, Shadiq, in the first round. Or not just in the first round altogether, but in the top 10. He looks like, I mean, looking at his combine and looking at all the stats and looking at it, like looking at all this stuff with him, he is definitely a first round tight end. I just don't think he's a first round tight end for us. I see him for another team. But already past the 20-minute mark with this video. I've kind of been repeating myself, been all over the place, but I hope you guys made it all the way to this point in the video. Let me know y'all's thoughts in the comments down below. Definitely would love that, so definitely don't forget to do that. Let me know y'all's thoughts. Do you think we should take him? Should we take the risk? Should we trade back and see what happens? Or should we just stick to the plan, or whatever the plan frickin' is, stay with the 8th overall pick and just get something that we actually need for the first round? You know, again, not saying that we don't need a tight end in this draft. We can still draft a tight end. I'm just saying we don't need a tight end in the first round, specifically. Now, maybe, yes, if we were outside of the top 10, I would have probably been like, you know what? He's a great tight end. He's the top tight end. Take the risk on him. But being top 10 could be a little bit risky, in my opinion. But honestly, I probably won't be as upset, really, or angry. It's just going to be pretty nerve-wracking, though, because it is going to be a risky pick. But I'm going to go ahead and end it off here. Again, if you guys made it all the way to this point in the video, hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys did enjoy it, make sure you guys... let me redo that. If you guys enjoyed the video, you guys know, as always, hit that like button. Also hit the subscribe button and the notification bell for future upcoming videos here on the BrewCrew channel. And with that being said, I hope you guys have an amazing, wonderful day. And as always, I will see you guys in my next video. Peace.